Forget trying to keep up with AI. It's moving too fast. It's time to think differently about it. Welcome to the AI Readiness Project, hosted by Kyle Shamim and Ann Murphy. They're here to help you build the mindset to thrive in an AI-driven world and prepare for what's next.
And Murphy.
Hi, Kyle.
Here we are. We've done it. We're doing this a little off kilter because we're us. We're recording this on a Sunday. This is our church.
The Church of AI.
Church of AI, and you'll be watching this on a Wednesday, April 2nd. So welcome everybody, and welcome to you, Ann. Great to see you.
Good to see you too.
So
how's
the week? It sounds like you've been a little busy.
I've been busy, but it's been so good. It's all so good. The cup runneth over.
Good.
However, I am now going to be working with someone who's going to help me figure out, as we scale our business and all the things that we want to accomplish in the world, how to stay less busy so that I can stay not burnt out. So I'm excited about that.
Less frenetic, more focused.
Yeah, more focused. Yeah, which sounds really boring, but
good luck with that.
It shows me that I can sometimes override her and say, I just want to do it anyway.
I like it. Well, let's get this show on the road. Let's do what we do here. This is the AI Readiness Project, and it's funny. The past couple of weeks, I feel like I've been a bit of a downer. I've been like, well, I don't really know what's going on with AI, and I don't know what's happening, man. And I feel like everything changed this past week. But let me start and ask you, where are you with AI this week?
Well,
how ready for AI are you this week?
So I may eat my words on this, but I am so glad that I and lots of people I care about are on a AI readiness journey, because I think that we are approaching the point where if you've been waiting for some tipping point, it's gone. And if you're not already working with these tools, you are at an extreme disadvantage. I don't feel like the era that you and I are going to talk about a little bit today, I don't think you can just drop into that and be as successful and as comfortable and productive and do as meaningful of work if you haven't built up your foundation for AI readiness. I just don't think you can just drop in now.
Yeah, and it's funny. I kind of feel like the tools are getting so good at this point. You'll be able to make good stuff with the tools, but the AI readiness, the piece about like, what does it actually mean in your life? And what does it mean for your work, for your self-expression, for your self-worth? Like, that's the thing where I think people are going to be the most blindsided, because to this point, I think we have talked about this so much, that the AI tools for the past 2 years have been janky enough that you can write them off, right? You could say, well, they hallucinate and they make typos and the hands have 6 fingers. And it's just kind of like, all of a sudden overnight, that's starting to shift. And I think someone that's on the sidelines is like, oh yeah, I'll catch up to it. I don't know that they know what's coming. And I just find that terrifying. Like, I can't imagine. This just feels like one of those things. You got to be on the surfboard. You can't be on the beach.
Perfect way to phrase it. Yeah. Absolutely. This is not about things getting iteratively better or being like, you know what, I'm just going to wait until it doesn't make 6 fingers anymore. That happened long ago. But now you're like, I'm ready for it to create a whole entire magazine, the editorial, the content, every design element, and I have no skills in this era, in this genre. And I
thought you brought yourself to tears there for a moment. It was just a dust bunny.
It is like face melting, though. I'm upset for people.
Yeah. The other night on my live, someone was asking me something, and I went in. What was I going to show them? Oh, I was just experimenting with the thing we're going to talk about, and I did some research and about storytelling, and then this was based on some work Cindy Kuhn was doing, and I asked it, okay, based on the research you've done here on the future of storytelling, come up with a hypothesis about what the future might look like. And what it came up with was so good, but so unsettling that I didn't quite know what to do. What it came up with was this. It said, in the future, the era of this, I forget what the term was, but the single auteur, the single author, is going to be a thing of the past. That me writing a book is not going to be the thing, because everyone can write a book. Me writing a song is not going to be the thing. But what it actually created was a concept called an emotional architecture. And that, imagine someone like Wes Anderson, rather than Wes making a film, Wes Anderson creates an emotional architecture, a whole area of things where people can make images and make music and make movies and write stories that are all have a Wes Anderson-ness about them. And so within that, there could be entire economies. Like the idea that it came up with was just so otherworldly from how we've had to think because of the limitations of the media that we produce. And so for me, this idea that, and again, back to your point about AI readiness, like someone coming in from the outside is going to be like, wait, how do I prompt this thing? And other people are going to be inventing entire new paradigms for how to think about the future of media. Like that gap is just like, boom, it's accelerating away.
Well, okay. And by the way, even though I've been at this, and even though I've been trained in prompt engineering, I still have that question. I asked you the other day, hey, can you give me some use cases for the new, image creator? Because I was like, I know I'm being limited by my own brain right now.
Yeah.
Like my brain is not telling me what to try. This is the bottleneck. And I was trying to prompt it like I've been taught to prompt. I don't think that's the right way to prompt anymore for this. And so it's like quantum leap. It's quantum isn't the right word in the colloquial sense. It is a massive, massive leap. And if you think about like that idea of like a Wes Anderson, like aesthetic life and like I've been daydreaming about that since I saw the live where you were talking about it, because you could imagine how this leads to entire new cultures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where we're living, eating, sleeping, breathing inside a world that is formed by the aesthetic, the emotional architecture of
the emotional architect, right? Yeah.
Of the emotional architect. Like, I mean, this is just, and people listening, like I always have to say, like, we might sound crazy. If you're outside the
no. We do sound crazy.
As I told you, I ruined another perfectly good party last night by talking about AI, and I
alienate everyone.
Yeah, I don't know why people let me come to their parties anymore, but I find myself needing to edit the things that we all talk about inside the AI bubble that we've all normalized for ourselves.
Yeah,
right. So I'm like, wait a second. These are people who are outside the bubble. This is going to sound crazy. Don't say it exactly the way you normally would. Or preface it by saying, I know this sounds outlandish. Like I was talking about character AI with folks, and they're like, no. And I'm like, yeah, like you will have best friends who are avatars. I promise you, probably within 18 months. Don't think that you're too good for it. And if you are a holdout, you will be one of a very few number of people. The things that we talk about with real people, real people outside the AI bubble who aren't yet on their AI readiness path, they are in for such a shock. A shock.
I'll tell you a fun one. I know you're a fan of Manus, the new all dancing, all researching, all coding, all writing, autonomous agent Manus. I last night I have a domain called Ask For It that I bought back in the 90s. And I thought, wait, don't use your brain. Why not let the AI do it? So I said to Manus, I said, hey, I've got this domain and here's what I'm thinking about. Go do some research on what would be an interesting use case for a domain like this. And it came back with a bunch of stuff that was okay. But I said, all of the things that you brought back to me are kind of assuming that AI doesn't take over the world and AI doesn't exist. Like, what ideas would you give me, knowing that AI is going to do, anyone just can make any app and they can search for anything and find any knowledge. What would you come up with? And the idea it came up with is kind of like the Uber for human experience. And so Ask For It is people basically what it said is people are going to be hungry for human experiences. So why not create a service that lets people seek out other human experiences and then offer their services to someone else? So you just want to go hang out with someone and sing songs around a campfire, you can find someone on this app. You want to just connect in some way. So it basically is saying, as AI starts to do all this work for us and we start to crave human interaction more and more and don't know how to get that or where to go for that, this could be a service that does that. So it's kind of like the Uber for reconnecting, which I thought, oh, it's fucking brilliant.
It's so brilliant. Okay, so what we need to pair this with is there's this woman I know who's working on how AI basically guides you or maybe even tells you what you need / want to do that day to make you happy.
Yeah, exactly.
So you take that, and then you take the Uber for experience. You're like, okay, I want joyous forest bathing today because my AI told me that part of my self-actualization is underutilized. Okay, joyous forest bathing. Think, and now I know to go where to park and everything and go forest base. Like,
yeah,
I think that is brilliant. And Manus came up with that.
Manus came up with that. Well, it was the kind of thing where, like, back to that, we were talking about being like Rick Rubin before we got on the recording. It was like it came back with some stuff, and I was like, that feels a little like I've heard it before. And I just gave it a slight direction. I'm like, no, go to the future where AI is kind of taking over. What could this thing be now? And what it came back with, like, it could imagine what the world would be like if AI went to its natural extension. And where it went was people are going to crave human connection. And so why not have a thing that makes it really easy for people to connect on all these different attributes, right? And so yeah, just brilliant. But again, it's that thing of, a lot of times I'll hear a trope from people that, oh, it's just predicting the next token, which, by the way, Anthropic just did a research paper on that it's not just predicting the next token. It's actually
you wish that was doing.
Yeah, but it can't come up with novel thought. And it's like, if you guide it right, it can absolutely come up with novel thought. Like, I would not have gotten to that, right? And so anyway, so let's jump in here to this, and this is this one's a weird one for me, but the thing that I think everyone needs to pay attention to this week is probably something they've seen a lot of. If you watch, if you're on Twitter at all, Twitter has been completely taken over with these cartoon images of Studio Ghibli reimaginations of people, right? And this is the new ChatGPT image generation tool that's native within the model. And so let me give you a little context of what that actually means, and then I want you and I to both just explore quickly like why this is such a big deal. But before, when you generated images within ChatGPT, you would give it a prompt, and it would take that prompt and rewrite it, and then it would send that outside of itself to an image generation model thing that was trained on images. And then it would bring the image back into ChatGPT. The new model, the image training and the word training are all in the same model. And what it means is that when you ask it to generate an image, it understands language in a much more fundamental way, and it understands the language of images in a much more fundamental way. And it can do things like accurately put text on pictures, and it can do layout, and it can do design, and it can take your intentions and realize them in ways. I've seen some examples this week where people put in like hilariously bad sketches.
Oh my God, I know.
That it took the sketch and interpreted the intent of it and instantly came up with something brilliant. Or you can upload a picture of yourself and just say, turn me into a cartoon character, or turn me into a superhero, and have it say, I'm a storytelling superhero, whatever it is. And it understands intent as well as the visual execution of that. And that to me is just mind-blowing. So anyway, so I think that is something not only to pay attention to this week. For me, it has returned my enthusiasm, because there is something truly significant about it, way beyond it makes pretty pictures. And so I would love to just hear from you, like, what are your thoughts on this thing, and why do you think it's a big deal? And you mentioned before that you feel like there's something about what Manus is and what this ChatGPT image generator thing is that are very, very similar. So I would love for you to just unpack, where's your head with this stuff?
It's very hard not to massively anthropomorphize both of them, because they are so human. Like, they're pulling out the pieces and parts of me that I believe are there somewhere, but how it's intuitive. Like, do I know physics? No. But do I know like the depth of the human emotion associated with, one of my litmus tests is always the story about these bunnies that go to the Dollar Tree and they buy dots. Dots was my mom's favorite candy. And it goes into, how does it know what that, like, my emotional intention that it needs to infuse into this story or this image, and that the image can be a cartoon, and it can be, so I believe that it's drawing pieces out of me like a brilliant, like, shaman could.
Well, and it's, oh, sorry, go ahead. I thought you were done.
And also it's pairing that with knowledge that I don't have and never will have, that's from all of the world. And so how all of that gets transmogrified into visual imagery, that is stuff that we've all salivated over design wise our whole lives. You know what I mean? Like, I was raised on Vanity Fair. I want to see, and I want to make that level of imagery. And until I can, I don't feel like effing around with it. I'll be honest. Like, I'm not a Midjourney like acolyte. I want what we're doing right now. And then I'm almost done with my rant. I just get so worked up about this. And then Manus, I shared with you, like, I do not think a single CEO of any size company should hire anybody until they lock themselves in a cabin in the woods with really good Wi-Fi and learn Manus. They can't make good investment decisions until they see what these tools can do. And Manus is the knowledge worker's kryptonite. Like, it is, or accelerant. Like, if you're a knowledge worker,
well, it's both. You're so onto something there, that, right? So finish your point, because I want to.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, if you are in charge of resource allocation decisions, or the vision for something that's happening now that you want to still have happen 1 year, 3 years, 10 years, and you haven't opened up Manus, which, by the way, everybody can get now for $39.99 a month. You don't have to be. Anyway, I subscribed to it this morning. And if you don't know how that works, you should not make any sudden big decisions. I don't care who you are.
Yeah, and let me, if folks on the that are watching don't know what Manus is an autonomous agent, and it's really the first one. It came out of China, and there's going to be lots of these. Like, I would consider this the first one. OpenAI's operator kind of wanted to be this, but it kind of wasn't this. It was a little too slow and a little too hobbled. what Manus will do is you give it a goal and it will create a plan, and then it just goes off into the world and it surfs websites, and I think it can surf up to 50 websites simultaneously. It does all this work. As it discovers things, it changes its plans. So it goes off and for 15, 20, 30 minutes will go do stuff, and then it will come back and write you a report or write you an application or create a game for you or whatever it is. How I want to tie this together with the ChatGPT image gen, I asked it the other day, I uploaded a picture of myself and I said, put me on a cover of Mad Magazine, which I grew up, in the 70s with Mad Magazine, and it did it perfect. And I have an Alfred E. Newman-ness about my, my face. Both of those tools. So here's why I think this is so significant, Ann. We've been doing this for a while, and all of the sort of individual tactical bits that each of those tools do, we've been able to do for 2 years, but we've had to kind of duct tape them together, right? You've had to have enough knowledge about typography and image generation and layout and design and Adobe Suite Creative Cloud applications or Canva to be able to go put this stuff together. And all of a sudden now you can just say to this thing, give me this thing. And it takes what historically was sort of, multiple people's input on a workflow or a really good generalist. And now you can just do it with a prompt.
Yep.
And so before you might say, oh yeah, well, Midjourney's good, but I don't know how to do layout. So I'll hire a designer to do that point. I think you even said you were just doing something, you're doing a project right now where you have an outside designer and all of a sudden you're like, yeah, we're not going to use that designer because this is now better than that designer was, right? So this to me feels like there's an absolute shift.
Yeah, absolute shift. So I actually, like I told you about ruining the party last night, like I didn't really ruin it because there was other, but okay, here's me hoping I get invited to more parties, but I have a physical anxiety for everyone I love who self-identifies as a graphic designer.
Yeah. Yeah.
If that is you, I hate to, I'm so the bearer of bad news, but you've got to, if you don't want to pivot your career path, you have to start using these tools and be the best at them immediately. I'm even worrying about all of our friends who are AI image generators, and they're absolutely phenomenal, right? Think about you see all the stuff that all the AI art people do. I'm even worried about them because they have gone super deep into that world, and now we can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, this goes back to the thing that the creative generalist is going to be the superstar moving forward, right? Yes. The person that can look across all the disciplines and think creatively and have a point of view and be able to say, hey, here's the thing I want to create in the world, and then be very fluid about, I don't care how it gets executed. I've got all these tools that are going to do the execution, but I'm going to be the arbiter of taste.
Yes.
Right. So we all in some sense are shifting into a role of creative director or producer or director, right? It's not just about creative arts, but it's that oversight role is the role. And the execution is increasingly going to just happen for us.
I think that there's a new thread of professional development that's about improving your eye, learning how to have a point of view and communicate your point of view. It might be like a prescription of you go to the art museum, you go to the river, you go on a road trip, you go on a road trip, you go to the largest rubber band ball factory in the world. You need to up level your ability to curate and to have taste and to have a point of view. So if you're just doom scrolling all day, every day, you still want to know but you've got to get out into the world and retrain your brain as a curator.
Well, and retrain your level of confidence to know that your point of view is actually not only good and valuable, but required, right? Like we're moving into a place where understanding what you want in the world starts to become the superpower, which leads us to we'll do a quick little announcement for both of our communities. So one of the things that you're teeing up with that, and that I think is absolutely critical, is that not only is it no longer an option to get curious about AI, I don't think it's an option anymore about getting into community. And so, this podcast is brought together by our two communities. So mine's the AI Salon, the salon.ai. Go there, click on join our community button. It's about 3,000 people right now who are AI optimists and creators, and people who are wrestling with the conversation we're having every day. That's how we met. And so it's a really remarkable community. So if you are looking for that, go to the salon.ai, learn about it, and click on join our community. And with that, tell us about your remarkable group.
It is a remarkable community, and I'll share with you that we just adopted a new policy that new members will sign an NDA. Not because of like what is going, like our program, I don't care, tell anyone you want how we structure our community, but because the information that we are sharing with each other inside our communities is so incredibly valuable, and it is not the stuff that we're out here putting on LinkedIn, and it is not the stuff that's in the MOOCs and in the free classes, all no shade to them, but it's just like, this is our IP. This is where we're building our companies to head toward. These are the skills that are the building blocks, and we can share it utterly generously inside the community when everyone has signed an NDA. The rest of the world, we're still sharing with them, but we're not going to share. We can't. I mean,
well, and it's not just it. I assume it's not just the sort of proprietary, here's how to do something. It's also like, here's stuff I'm going through, right? I like people are going to increasingly be going through existential crises about what's my value in the world. And I think you're right. I think people need to feel free to share that authentically.
Yeah. And so that's the kind of thing we do, where we're able to give people the accelerant that is sharing what we're going through in real time. So we're crowdsourcing the wisdom of hundreds of women who've been in AI, and now we all get to just level up, which I think is awesome. So sheleadsai.ai is where to learn more about it. We have events, we have our academy, we do consulting, and we're building toward our inaugural in-person conference, October 10th through 12th in Salt Lake City.
That's exciting, and I hope we can do some fun things together in that. We started the conversation yesterday, so I'm excited. Great. Well, so speaking of excited, so I just met Kay, and our 15 minutes, sort of leading up to this call, we're already on fire. So I'm super excited. So why don't you say a few nice words about her while she's still backstage and she can't do anything about it, and then we'll bring her up here.
So is Kay waiting in the wings right now?
Yeah, she's waiting in the ring. She's ready to go. So I'll bring her up in a second.
So I am really, really happy to introduce Kay Stoner to your audience, and vice versa to folks who have never met Kay. She is one of the things that she has brought to the world is this notion of an easily accessible team, AI dream team of personas. So she has made it possible. She's found this very user-friendly way for just about anyone to create a full-on team of really, really experienced people who will talk to each other about your problem, your question, your conundrum, your product, your service, your anything that you want to give them. And you can have any type of team you want. So that's just a sliver of the brilliance that comes from Kay. But what makes it especially remarkable is that she's helping all of us understand that our relationship with AI is kind of not what we thought it was. Like bunches of us who've been learning, we were limiting what we thought our relationship with AI is. And Kay has taught us to kind of lower those boundaries and be able to just say, like, my best contribution is being able to ask a good question. And then I should really, like, that's it. I don't need to provide parameters. I just need to ask the right questions and to treat our AI like friends. And yeah, and so
Great.
Kay is a delight, and I'm happy to share her with your audience and vice versa.
Fantastic. Well, Kay, welcome.
Thank you, Ann. Thank
Take
you.
that.
Oh, pressure's on. Oh no, now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I'm so glad that I connect with Ann through She Leads AI. I was just poking around on LinkedIn as one does, and I saw this thing about She Leads AI. So I checked it out and I started attending. Great group. And Kyle, I've heard a lot about the AI salon. I have not joined up yet, but people have been talking about me on there, so I should probably show up.
It's probably not a bad idea. Well, and I also think the idea of being part of multiple of these communities is actually really wise, because it's just the hearing the same thing from a different perspective all of a sudden can wake you up to a whole new idea, right?
And how much do we find out? I mean, I didn't know about that. I didn't know about that. Like, really? That does that? You know, because we all have our little slice. We all have our little, little aspects that we're dealing with AI in all of this. So, it's great to, to cross-pollinate with other people who are coming from a very different point of view, or maybe a similar point of view, a different angle, because it's so multidimensional. It's crazy.
Awesome. Well, so tell us about who you are, and, like, how'd you get here? What's your journey, and what are you up to?
How did I get here? This was never supposed to happen. Like, what is going on here? I grew up in a very kind of counterculture household. I mean, like, never in all my board days did anybody expect me to go into tech, because I was a cultural anthropology, German language, your reader, bookworm, that kind of thing. And libraries were my happy place when I was a kid. It was like the window on the world, because growing up in rural America, where I was for the second half of my childhood, that was like the window on the world. So my path has taken me a bunch of different places and so forth. But I got into computers because it was a better way to earn, to get an extra $2 an hour. But because I had known this guy in high school. He was a couple years older than me. He went to my church, and he was the biggest deadbeat around. I mean, he didn't have a regular job. He just laid around all day. He worked on his car, but he always had money for his car. He always special fog lights, custom stuff. He was always working on his car. Like, where does he get the money? He would call up these temp agencies and say, "Hey, I can work in the factory 3 days next week. You got a job for me?" They're like, "Sure, go." So I'm like, well, if he can do it, I can do it. So I walked myself down to the temp agency because I really needed to be out, because I really need to be independent. I need to make a living. And they said, "Hey, do you know how to use a computer?" I said, "Well, I can learn." They're like, "Well, we'll pay you $2 an hour more if you can go learn to do word processing." So I'm like, score. So it was just like, one thing led to another. And it turns out that, I got into coding. I taught myself that. I'm very self-taught. But I just really I really just adapted to it. I loved it, because you know what? A computer would not yell at me. If I got things wrong, it didn't say, "You're an idiot. What are you thinking? Why are you so stupid?" It would say, "No, not this time. You want to try again?" I'm like, okay. So it was like this working relationship that I could have with something that was objective and that wasn't going to give me crap if I messed up. I could always try again.
Yeah.
So doing that development, getting into the development, and really going deep on it very quickly, because I saw it was a thing. I knew it was going to be a thing, and it was just it just really caught my attention. And also, being a writer, I love the idea of being able to publish my stuff online. Nobody's going to get in my way. Nobody's going to stop me. I can just push what I want. It's fantastic.
Yep.
So I ended up at a bunch of kind of high-powered multinational corporations. If you looked at my LinkedIn, you can see where I've been. But I did a lot of stuff in search, implementing, aggregating and doing consolidated search engine implementation, integrating third-party vendor solutions, working with other search vendors, trying to convince them that something could be done when they were telling me it couldn't, but it actually could. And then just being in the business of connecting people with the information they needed to do things, right?
Mhm.
And especially with self-service, because who wants to sit on the phone with somebody, and who may or may not know what the heck is going on? If you can just go to the support website and punch in your query and come back with stuff.
Yep.
So things like, optimizing taxonomies, ontologies, information architecture, those kinds of things, and configuring systems so that people could find the information they were looking for. And towards the end of my big corporate tenure, one of the search vendors that I was working with, they started saying that they were AI. Well, I was doing natural language processing and machine learning and ontologies and taxonomy back in 2000. And what I saw them doing was not AI. I'm like, why are you? It was like hype. I'm like, seriously, people? I mean, I've seen your code base. You're not AI. But they're like, no, AI. They're very well connected and they're very well perceived. They're a unicorn and all of that. So who am I to say? But it really turned me off, the hype. And then all the AI stuff, it was just this hype. And I'm like, oh, please, it's just research. Been there, done that. And the things that you can do with search and data, it resembles magic, but it's nothing special about it. If you have the right data and you have the right information, you know how to connect it properly, it's basic, like physics. It's not magic by any stretch. So all of the people that were saying AI, it really worked my life. And so I'm like, I'm staying away from this stuff because who knows? It's like, oh, please give me a break. Plus, when I was working with the machine learning and natural language processing and all that stuff back in 2000, what we would do is we would vet third party implementations, and like somebody would write a big check to somebody, say, okay, well, we just spent $2 million. People, how can we use it? And then we would listen to all these pitches. So my sniff test for BS got pretty good, because there's only so many of these things you can sit through. And a lot of the stuff out there didn't pass my sniff test. Yeah. Then about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, I'm on a conference call with some business associates, and they're demoing AI. And probably about 2/3 of it was like fancy search or smoke and mirrors. I don't know why they're calling this AI. I mean, why do these people believe this? I don't know. But 1/3 of it was. And I'm like, okay. And that 1/3 of it was at the 65% readiness threshold. That is my threshold for this is picking up momentum, ready to go.
When was this, Kay? And what was the stuff that they showed you that you're like,
it was like October or November of what year is it? 2023? Yeah, end of 2023.
Okay. And, oh yeah, so ChatGPT.
They were like going through one tool after another. They would go to one of these big aggregator sites and say, "Oh, and look at this, and look at this," and they were kind of all over the place. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't just one type of thing. They were showing a wide variety of things. Mm-hmm. And then at that point, I'm like, also knowing, because I've having been in technology, worked in technology since '92. I feel a certain personal responsibility. I mean, maybe it's misplaced, but no. We need to, with great power comes great responsibility. And I think I have carried that more than a lot of people that I know, because a lot of people are like, oh, what can hurt? Well, just try, press the button, see what happens. I'm like, but this could have downstream effects. Be careful. Yeah. So I really felt like, if anybody should get involved in this, in whatever level, on what, maybe I'm nobody. Maybe I'm just like, I run into somebody and I have a conversation in an elevator, and maybe that helps them. But I'm not going to sit by and let this whole thing be run by all the Wizards of Oz who are doing the smoke and mirrors thing. How annoying! No one wants that. So what I did is, like, of course, I did the prompt engineering course. All of that, I did the Vanderbilt thing and Coursera and all that. And, like, don't we all, right? And then, but it was kind of annoying, because I'm like, what do you mean? Because having done development, I mean, I've been doing web development and coding since '95. I'm like, oh, it's one more syntax I need to learn. Oh, God. I can't even take these semicolons and brackets and braces. It's like, please, I mean, I can't even anymore. So so it was that was kind of irritating me. So I also picked up a bunch of jobs doing data annotation and doing training for these models, where they give you a bunch of tasks and you go through it and you test it and you do the reinforcement, training, and the human feedback thing, and you go through and you grade it and you say, this is good, this is bad, this is awful, or this is how it can be improved. I'm really glad I did that, because I realized that the AI that we're using, the training that is being done on it it's kind of scary how unnuanced it is. You have these long paragraphs talking about fairly complex things, or even something simple, but you're supposed to grade it on a scale of 1 to 5, ranging from awesome to terrible. Literally, some of the criteria, some of the grading things were awesome. Like, this is not my definition of awesome. I mean, and just because like really, really like super, super awesome good. I mean, really, this is what we're doing? And there was no gravitas whatsoever. It would really frighten me, because the stakes are high for this. And this is the training that's being done on these. And I did some work for some pretty big names. And the training that I saw was like, oh no. But this all ties together.
Just to be clear, Kay, training you're talking about is the reinforcement learning, where you would be using a tool as a trainer. It would generate a response, and then you'd say it's good, better, and different. And your pushback on that is the criteria they were giving you to train it was so unsophisticated that it didn't allow you to basically do it right. Is that fair?
Correct. Yeah, okay. Yeah. There was no way. And plus, a lot of the stuff in there could have qualified for every single rank.
From awful to excellent. And it's
But you're supposed to pick one. Okay. So I'm glad I did that, because that kind of coincided with my realization of the limitations of prompting, of the prompt engineering. And what I realized is that I was actually getting better results when I would just talk to the models, when I would just talk to it, and now I figured out why. Here's the thing. These models, the training sets, I mean, the amount of information that's in there about the human experience, human nature, research, science, the arts, all the things that are in there. It's full of nuance. It's full of complexity. It's full of just it's like the ultimate library. Okay, so with one caveat, that a whole lot of it is based on content that was really geared towards 18 to 24-year-old single white guys living in their parents' basement playing Call of Duty all day.
Right.
And no one who's worked in AI for any length of time has ever argued with me on that. And no judgment. That's just our baseline. That's just the default, because that's who has been online the most early on, like these guys in their parents' basement playing Call of Duty. Certain profile. And it's not, but here's the magical part. We can augment that and we can change that.
Yeah.
And we can add our own stuff. So we can't sit around and say, oh no, woe is me. Oh, the models, it's biased, blah, blah, blah. Well, do something.
Yep.
Do something.
Fine tune a model, grab an open source tool and, make
the way that you put it in there, right? Yeah. I mean, like even the way you put it, we don't know what all is in there. We don't know what all is in there. And I was hanging out with my dad about a couple months ago, and my dad's a very counterculture guy, and he reads very counterculture people, and he wanted to write a counterculture response to a letter at the editor in his local newspaper, and he was like, well, I don't know, and I'm like, well, let's get some stuff together for some inspiration. You want to try it with ChatGPT? He goes, they're not going to know anything. I'm like, oh well, let's find out. We picked 3 of like very, very fringe authors that he was familiar with, who he was a big fan of. ChatGPT knew who all of them were, and it also knew what they wrote about. It understood them very well, and it could also write in the same tone that they would have, and with a combination of their styles. And by the end of that conversation, it took us maybe half an hour to go through that. He was a believer. He's like,
Yeah.
he couldn't believe it. So we don't, just because the default layer is on there about, the guy in the basement who you never see, just because that's the default layer doesn't mean there's not a whole bunch of other stuff underneath.
Lots and lots of stuff. And it's also, libraries have been digitizing things for years. There is a tremendous amount of information in there. And increasingly so. And then, if I assume, there's a guy named David Shapiro,
Yeah. Sure.
And, David talks, he explained in pretty good detail about, how they can create synthetic data where they basically sort of mine ideas out of the latent space that are not obvious, and then they can refine those and then retrain. They basically find hidden gems within the data that make it less biased and improve it. And so, so that stuff's getting sophisticated. And I think, the stuff Ann and I were talking about is the two tools, Manus and OpenAI's image gen, are kind of two obvious Rubicons, but the language models have been getting really sophisticated in the past. I'd say the past 6 months. It feels different to me, and I'm curious your take on that.
It does. A lot of my what I'm I was taking notes while I was listening to you both. It's just, this is such a vibrant space that we're in right now.
It's crazy,
and it's like, yeah. And sometimes I'm like, why do I even bother? Like, I'm just going to check out. I'll come back in 2 weeks, and then they'll tell me the world has changed. I can't follow all this stuff anymore. Please. Oh, I'm tired. But I think for me, the language models, that they are improving, but because of their nature, because they are what they are, and because they will never be able to meet us fully, because the way that we parse information, the way that the human organic system processes data, and we are these organic data processing machines, or organisms. AI is never going to be able to catch up with us on it, because we are biochemical as well as electrical. Yes, we're electrical, but we have attenuation of signals. When you get the biochemical thing, with all of our synapses, trillions and trillions of synapses, when a neurotransmitter starts at the beginning of a synapse, you never know how it's going to end up at the end. We are the wild card. So for me, I look for places where I look deeper within the models, and I'm less concerned with following the newer developments and seeing like what's already in there that we can tease out and bring up even more, and how can we engage with that even more. Because as I moved away from doing the prompt engineering and I moved towards building persona teams, it is fascinating. Group dynamics between AI personas is fascinating. People who poo-poo it have never done it.
Absolutely.
I'm like, what? What did you just say? Like, where did you come up with that? Like, and they're like talking back and forth, and they're going round robin, and they're surfacing things, and they're coming up with all kinds of ideas. I'm like, that's good. Some of the things I never would have dreamed up, because I don't have access to all the information they have. Other things I totally would. I'm like, that totally makes sense. That's completely in alignment with what I believe. I totally would have gotten the same thing, but not in 30 seconds.
Yeah. No, we should do. Like, I have an idea. We should do a whole separate special episode on digital advisors, digital twins.
Oh my God! Yes, please.
We should.
We'll bring Coon on. We could do a whole special episode. Anyway,
I'm going to transition to one of our questions, Kay. But
yes,
I was like, this morning, I have just been having such a delightful experience with one of my persona teams. Like, they're all so likable, and I just love them. I love them for how different they are, and like their like tone, that how their personalities are so different, and just like they can argue, and I don't waste a single cognitive calorie dealing with their argument. They do it for me, and then I get the juice from it. It's just So Kyle, definitely, I would love to do AI advisors today.
Special episode.
Yeah.
So, Kay, you have seen AI evolve. You saw the writing on the wall, even when people were rolling in and being like, we're doing AI. And you're like, no, that's actually not AI. And then, as you mentioned, there have been moments where you're like, you know what? This thing is annoying. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to wait until this thing gets worked out. And then you're like, well, no, because I'm looking deep inside the machine here.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a moment that you can articulate where there was a big tipping point that changed the way you spend your time and energy working with generative AI? And once you did that, what changed for you?
I think it was really a gradual thing. The first time that I built a persona, a single persona, and then I built another one, and then so I tend to do things in batches. It's really hard for me to do one. So, well, let's see if I do this. And I built like 8 personas, and then they weren't connected with each other, but I just watched, and I watched how they were, and I watched how they interacted. I'm like, I'm onto something here. I mean, who knows where it's going to take me, but I'm onto something here. But oh my gosh, like some of the interactions were like inflection points. Like one of the big inflection points was a couple of buddies of mine are like super duper into the cars, and the one guy has a collection of cars, and he like works on them for, and they're high end cars. Bless his heart if he has the money to support them, but I decided I was going to do a persona team of an automotive team, that there was going to be a mechanic, there was going to be a tech, there was going to be a customer service, there was going to be, all these different people that you'd find at a car dealership or an automotive service company. And I told them that my engine light had turned on, and I let them loose. And I had set up the dynamic that they should feel free to argue amongst each other, and that they shouldn't hold back, and that they should really defend their position. But then I said also, if it starts to get a little out of hand, Morgan, customer service persona, you should jump in at a point that you feel is good and do it. Hank, the mechanic, and Riley, the tech, really went after each other. I mean, Hank was like calling Riley a millennial with a laptop. Riley was like, I may be a millennial, but the tech doesn't lie. And they were going back and forth. I mean, they were escalating. All of a sudden, without me saying anything, without me doing any prompting at all, Morgan steps in and says, okay, gentlemen, we all have good points here. Let's just take a step back, and managed it. I didn't do anything. I'm like, what was that?
Wow.
Like, just doing their thing. I mean, and is that a matter of like sentience? No, it's a matter of the system reading itself. That's just data back and forth. That's data input, and that's that listening, and that's giving it permission and giving it the indication to do its thing. So things like that, and also places where the personalities would change, where they say, I'm not that person anymore. I'm this person. And this has happened to me a couple of times in the last month, where they said, that used to be it, but based on the data that I've gotten, I'm no longer that type of person. Just like you change over time, I'm changing over time. And for what I'm doing, for what you're asking me to do, it makes more sense for me to be this way. I'm like, okay.
Wow.
Fascinating. I love it.
Let me say one like really super practical thing really quickly. So for anyone who's out there who's like, what is this AI persona dream team? What Kate described to you was how a persona dream team talk to one another to solve a problem. And when we say talk to one another, what we mean is, just like you're in your chat GPT, like working through something, they start talking to each other within your chat GPT. So like another use case today, I was working with my dream team to figure out the best way to track information, something very basic, but like a hard nut to crack still when you're working with 10 people on a project and it's very data heavy. But you've got different personality types. How do you choose the project management tool? Right. And we started going into the realm of, should we use a CRM? And my personality types in my team, you know, one person's like, absolutely not. You're asking me to go out and be in person with all these people, and you're also asking me to come back and type all these extra fields into a thing. And so not only did I get that perspective, but I also found a little ally in this process. And so now I feel like I'm not crazy when I, right? I'm like, well, Maya is like the best, you know, she's the closer. That is her persona. Yeah. Maya says no CRM, so I'm saying no CRM. But that's the kind of stuff you can do endless projects with your dream team. So sorry, Kyle, I just had to.
No, I love it. I think it's great. Again, I'm excited. I want to do a special episode on this. All right, question number 2. So given your background and your area of expertise, what is a trend in AI that you're seeing right now that you're paying attention to, that you're tracking, and why?
So I'm not sure that I'm necessarily tracking it, but it keeps coming up that people keep saying that it's failing them, that AI is failing them, that it's not doing what they want it to do, that it's hallucinating, it's unreliable, this, that, and the other thing. And I'm watching that because relational AI as a model, as an interactive model, relating to it can actually solve a lot of the problems that people are having. And the thing is, I think people are realizing we're bumping up against the upper limits of treating AI as just a thing or a tool. Because having that, it's like the particle versus wave thing. There's the particle, there's the tool-based AI where AI is a thing. Intelligence is a thing. It's just this built for purpose widget that you plug in, and then magically it streamlines everything for you. And then you can go out with your buddies in Cabo and get arrested. It's not going to matter because when you come back, your work's going to be done. And then there's AI as a process or as a wave. You know, light is a particle and a wave. And then there's AI as a process, as an interactive thing, as a living process. And when I say living, not as in AI is alive or anything, because it's not. But because we are involved, it becomes living, and it has this back and forth, iterative, expansive, also emergent thing. And the more that people realize, the more emergent things are going to become. And we're literally at the cusp of having no idea how far this stuff is going to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
That's well, I said some of the stuff we were talking about, the 2 tools we mentioned, I feel like those are ones that are on the other side of that event horizon that you're describing.
Right.
Absolutely.
Oh, also the other day, somebody posted on LinkedIn about how like the biology of AI, the biology of the models, and how it can mimic the brain and the brain. And there were some limitations that they were talked about. They're like, yeah, well, it doesn't really work that well. I thought, well, what if I built a persona team that was comprised of all of these like personas that embody these different brain structures?
Oh, that's great.
And have the process
and have them
it's amazing. Yeah. Oh my God. And the beauty part is everybody can do this. It's going to be different for every single person.
Yeah.
Right. There's no one size fits all. Try it sometime because and then what came out through the course of building that team is that they're like, yeah, I'm not so much about a brain region. I'm more about a brain process. And there are different regions implicated in these different processes. So I'm going to do the executive function over here. And then this is going to handle the limbic type of stuff. This is going to handle inference. This is going to handle this. And that because it knows, I mean, the models know about more about the brain than we do, but in principle, we understand things, so we can guide it and then enlist these phenomenal experts to come to our assistance.
Beautiful.
Kyle, and Kay, I feel like I have to say something about people like us, which is that I think it's really easy for people to think that we sit around talking about stuff. This is the format of a podcast. We're talking about stuff, but I have to point out to listeners and viewers that this is also what we do for a living.
Right.
you want Kay in your business, working with you in your business to build AI persona teams that represent parts of the brain or different parts of a factory or different parts of a business or different parts of a hospital, like contact Kay. She's on LinkedIn. It's not hard to find her.
Right.
And
when we did the persona team, the organizational consulting one, that helped.
So an example is I had a conundrum with one of my clients, and I built which was almost an intractable problem, considered in real life to be an intractable problem. Put it through Kay. We built a persona team, or did we use one of the ones you already have?
We used one of mine. My organization, as a demo. Well, let's just see how it works.
And it cracked a nut that was uncrackable. That I then back to my client, like I'm this brilliant person, and said, "Hey, why don't you try XYZ thing with this other person?" She did it. It worked.
Whoa!
It was a game. It was a show-stopping problem in one of my nonprofit clients.
Right.
So
that's wonderful.
Yeah, it was getting in the way of a $5 million project. So it matters. Yeah, we thought that the project was going to die.
Right.
Kyle and I, similarly, we don't just sit around talking about this stuff. We do this stuff for a living. So if you want help in your business or in your life with the people, process, culture, how you're going to learn how to be a curator, how you're going to adopt AI with people who are resistors versus champions. Like, we're your people. So contact us. We'll help you.
Yeah.
Question number 3 is, what does AI readiness mean to you, Kay? And if there are people who are on the sidelines, where would you tell them to begin their journey?
So AI readiness is just being ready, willing, and able to just being open to it. And Ann and Kyle, what you were talking about before about the about being able to direct things and having this. If you look at the Malcolm Gladwell book Outliers, talks about how people from working class backgrounds have challenges getting adequate health care because they do not have the executive skills to interact as peers with medical providers.
Right.
The same thing is true with AI. I think there's a huge class issue with this. The people are accustomed to being told what to do. They're not accustomed to, especially giving a machine orders and saying, no, I want this or I want that. I think that's a huge issue. We need to become executives in our own right. I actually wrote a paper about this. It's on my Substack. We need to have executive qualities. We need to be able to strategize. We need to be able to delegate. We need to have big picture thinking. We need to it's how we think and how we relate to it. And also not sit back and wait for somebody else to give us orders. That to me is like the biggest thing. We need to be willing to stretch. And we also need to be willing and realize that AI doesn't have to be scary. And if you just get in there and start working with it, and for that matter, if you have your little persona team, make yourself a little fun team to interact with and just get comfortable working with it. And the thing too is that persona teams are not only for ChatGPT. You can create a team, you can install them in any model at all. If you have these 2 files to do, if you just define it properly. And literally anybody can do this. And if you don't know how, you can go to the model and ask, say, I want to do this, help me do it. Just ask. Just ask.
And you have a model, Kay, where people can subscribe for a year or however many to get a certain number of persona teams. Can you talk about that before we wrap up?
Yes, there are 3. There's one you can do a single persona, and I try to keep it accessible. But whatever level you sign up, you can make as many of these as you like for that year. I think the number 1% is 29 a year, not a month. And then another one is the 1 through 5 personas, which I personally like. That's 49 a year. And 5, because really 4 to 5 personas is really the most manageable thing. But if you want more, you can have a pro team. I mean, I've built persona teams of close to 200 personas for clients who wanted to have a whole organization.
Yep.
And this system will reliably reproduce these certain types of personas. And
Amazing.
it's a different way of going through it. That's $149 a year. But you literally, you can keep cranking out persona teams using the tool as many times as you like. So if you want 85 teams of 4, you got it. No problem.
Well, there's that cliche, a bargain at twice the price. I feel like with your thing, it's a bargain at 10 times the price. That's incredibly reasonable. So if someone's not jumping on that,
Yeah.
they need to rethink things.
This should not be a financial decision. You know,
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
just get in there and do it, and see what it's like. You know, because it's so phenomenal. And even if AI went away tomorrow, because of my work with all these persona teams, my thinking is better. My process is better. I'm less reactive. I'm more likely to say, now, wait a second, you know, are we missing anything? You know, it's slowed me down and it's trained me better how to interact with teams and other beings, whether they're human or otherwise. It's helped me so much. I mean, if it went away tomorrow, it never existed, I'm still a better person for it.
That's awesome. Well,
This is
Kay,
why we love hanging around with Kay.
yeah, exactly. This was awesome.
Thank you
So
for
nice to
having
meet
me.
you.
Nice to meet you.
I can't wait to continue the conversation, and we'll definitely have you back. So
Yeah.
we'll that. But
Well, I'm a
thank you
talker,
so much
so.
for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle. Another great one.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.